Hello everyone, welcome to this video. Today we're going to be talking about the Exodus in the Bible, and let's just get started. So if you haven't read the Bible before, basically up into the Exodus, God created the earth and everything in it. He created mankind, and basically in that time mankind lost faith in God and started just going about doing crazy stuff, you know what I'm saying? Society breaking down and all that. But there was one man in his family, Noah, who still believed, and this man he was told to build an ark. He built an ark, and brought all the animals, everything, and that's where we are today. Here we are. But after the flood, the descendants of Noah kept going, around the world, and different societies were made, different languages formed, and just mankind started splitting out across the world, right? But in that, they lost their original culture. They lost their faith in God. And there was really only a certain people, there's people scattered about that still believe, but I'm just saying society started, making up all kinds of other stuff, false gods and all that, and that's where we see, how there's an anonymity before, in those times before God, is what I'm saying. I know I'm using the wrong word, but I'm saying there's an anonymity towards God, is what I meant to say. And so that forms, and there's really only a certain people that still believe, and that was, Abraham. He obviously believed in God. Whenever God would tell him to do something, he'd take it, and basically God promised him that he would be given descendants of nations, and in particular one nation. And there's a significance to this, because if you read the Bible, you'll find out that all the people in the Bible, all the stories are actually descending of Jesus Christ, you know what I'm saying, the bloodline. So, essentially, he was promised a nation, which is Israel, and, over time, his children, his descendants, built that nation. And the significance of that is that, God had, a nation that would continue to spread, the Bible and faith in God. And he used that to, now here we are in the modern world, and, a lot of people in the world are Christians now. So he used that nation, that's the significance of it, he used that nation as like a way to continue faith without it, breaking up, because when there wasn't a nation, it just all broke up. You see what I'm saying? There are some people that still believe, but especially Abraham. So, after, all that, the promise, Abraham had a child, Isaac, and, he had a child, Jacob. And the significance of Jacob is that he's basically the kind of founder of the nation of Israel. So out of him came the children that would, the tribes of Israel named after. And basically they're the heads of, the foundation of Israel. If you don't know, Israel was broken up between 12 different tribes and eventually a kingdom, but that was basically the foundation of Israel itself, the political kind of foundation, but not political, but you know what I mean, just the societal foundation of it. And so, Jacob had multiple children, and one of them was Joseph. Now, Joseph had, God, gave him visions and stuff and dreams, right? And what happened is, he had a dream that his brothers would bow down to him, in a sense, you know what I'm saying? And when he told his brothers that continually, they were like, well, we're not bowing down to you. What are you, a king or something? And, basically the Bible tells us that fundamental occurrence that, we can have, bad brothers. You know what I'm saying? Brothers that do stuff. I wouldn't say bad brothers, but I would say brothers that, aren't very nice to us, or siblings aren't very nice within the family. And that's what happened to Joseph. They weren't very nice to him. They didn't treat him very well. And essentially, one day, they got jealous because he's saying, we're gonna, I'm having these dreams, and one time they decided to throw him in a well, and they were gonna kill him. But a slave driver came across, about the time when they were thinking of killing him, deciding what to do, how to spin it. They saw the slave driver in the distance. Now, if you don't know, back in the day, slavery was a big thing. The ancient Egypt had much slavery going on. They'd take young people that were sold as slaves from all these countries and then just, use them for their slavery. And that kind of culture developed, to mass slavery and just, ethnic slavery. And essentially, basically, they sold Joseph as a slave to get rid of him because they were jealous that he was having these dreams and saying that. He wasn't saying that's what's going to happen. He was just saying, I'm having these dreams, and they took it in a mean way. And so he was sold off, and over time he was taken to Egypt. And the brothers, while he was being taken away, they took his coat before he left, cut it, tore it, and then killed an animal and dipped the blood of the coat in the animal and sent it on over to Jacob as a way to, hey, Dad, examine this and see if it's your son's. And he was like, well, that's my son's, and he thinks he's murdered. And back in the day, we take things for square value because we expect honesty from everybody. And that's what he expected from his sons. He expected honesty from them, and they lied. So that's another example the Bible gives us, dishonesty. And it came back on him. It's a little embarrassing. Obviously, you'll see that. But he basically, they kept the lie going for years while Joseph was sold away. But what they didn't realize was going to happen is that Jacob was going to lose a part of him, essentially, because he really actually believed his sons that he was murdered. You know what I'm saying? And that they found the coat. He actually believed that, some wild animal, tore him up. And so, if you know anything about, losing somebody like your dad, your mom, or maybe you're a dad or mom that's lost their sons or daughters, you know that, that kind of leaves a hole in you. That's not going to make it to where life's unbearable, but it's just gonna leave a dent, especially if somebody in a family that's a good character, a funny person, or somebody that's likable, and they're just a team player in a family. That leaves a hole in you. So you can imagine how Jacob would be distraught by that, knowing that his son, his younger son, was killed. And so they had to deal with the guilt of that, and they kept it under wraps and kept the story going. But they know behind back in their minds that they're the one that's causing their father's grief. And so that's just an example of, lying can, bring about, unexpected consequences to other people, not just yourself, other people. And over time, Jacob made it to Egypt, and they sold him as a slave to someone. And basically, he was given, he was just a servant of a house, he was given objectives and duties, and over time he was entrusted more and more with the house, to where basically everything the man owned, that his master owned, he was entrusted with. But the one thing that the Bible tells us, about adultery and sexual immorality is to not, have, intercourse with another man's wife. And so basically Joseph had everything this man had. He was given all these responsibilities of the house, but the only thing he wasn't to touch was the master's wife. And what happened is the wife was obviously, a little promiscuous. And in that time, while he was at the house, she would keep on, presenting presenting herself to him. But, kept, taking him to the room and saying, let's have sex and stuff, you know what I'm saying? And each time, and this is another example of the right thing to do, is each time he said, no, I'm not going to do that. My master has entrusted me with all these things. Everything he has, he's entrusted me with. The only thing that I don't have, that he has not entrusted me with, is his wife. And he didn't have any intercourse with her. And eventually she got jealous, and she keeps taking him over to his room. And one day she got the entire servants of the house to just go outside, right? She gets him, Joseph, to go up in their room, and he grabs his coat and says, well, you come sleep with me. And he didn't do it, and this is after a while. He refused over time and time again. So basically when he went off out of the room, his coat came off, and she had his coat. And now she's thinking, she's being a little mischievous. Now she's thinking, obviously she's jealous because he wouldn't have sexual intercourse with her. And she just does whatever came in her mind and yelled out for help, and like she was being raped. And so when all the servants of the house came over, she was told of the story, this Hebrew came over and, he's trying to, rape me, which was a lie and it's false accusation. And the Bible does say things about false accusations. It's not right. There's consequences to innocent people because of false accusations. And the consequence in this case was that when the master of the house heard about it, he believed his wife. Like how Jacob, listened to his sons. We expect honesty. And he expected honesty from her, and she lied to him. And the consequence of that was that Jacob was taken to prison, and he was just left there for years. So all because one lady, but obviously this was for God's purpose. But I'm just saying, it just gives the example, selfishness and how, anger and hatred can, jealousy can make you do things that are, stupid and have unintended consequences on both the person that you mean to have the consequence put upon and even on others that you didn't, So Jacob was in the prison, and eventually, two men were put in prison as well, in the same prison he was in. One of them was the cupbearer of Pharaoh, and if you don't know, Pharaoh was like the position of, basically, like, think of President of the United States, but think of like Kim Jong-un, okay? So the Pharaoh's like supreme leader of Egypt. So the cupbearer, so basically anyone who pisses him off is going to get, thrown in prison. You get one chance, you screw up, you're getting thrown in prison, and whatever happens, there's really no justice at that point. So cupbearer was taken to prison because, he screwed up. Same thing with the person that brings him the food. He screwed up. And so, they're taken to prison, and, they're talking, with Joseph, and, they're saying how they're worried about, what's going to happen. Am I going to return my position or not? And Joseph, obviously vision, and he says, well, you're going to return to him in your position. The other one, he's going to have your head, taken away. And so when it comes about, the cupbearer is restored to his position, and the one that, brings the food, they had him executed. And so when the cupbearer saw that, he didn't remember anything. He just went off, and, he didn't remember what Joseph had told him. he remembered, but he just didn't, he didn't put it in his mind anymore to say something about it. So a couple of years later, Pharaoh, had dreams and visions and about, famine. And so they brought all the magicians over. None of them could interpret the dream. And so the cupbearer, seeing that, well, wait, there's this guy that correctly told this vision. And so they brought him over out of that prison, brought him before Pharaoh, and from that point on, he told him the vision, what the dream meant. And Pharaoh entrusted him with the governorship of Egypt, and he basically had full control of Egypt with regards to, policy and whatnot. It's just the only thing he didn't have was with respect to the throne, which was Pharaoh. So in that time, he worked to stock up food. There was going to be 7 years of good land and then famine. So in between that time, they were stocking up all the food, getting it ready. And, how would they know that this is an act of faith? Because they didn't know that, this is some guy that was a slave. They didn't know that if this was real or not. That was an act of faith to actually prepare. You know what I'm saying? It was to prepare. And when it came about, the famine, they had food for everybody. And the famine was brought about in other lands and other countries. And, you might be wondering, what's the significance of what I'm saying? The significance of what I'm saying is God set up Joseph in this position so that the Israelites, the early Israelites, would have a place in Egypt where there's much riches, and and the significance of this is that they're set up, as a nation. They're set up, to where eventually they can go out and, there's the land that God had prepared for them. But the significance of that is, what I just said, to set up that nation, to solidify it, to prove it, is what I'm saying, on the world stage. So the other lands had severe famine, obviously, and all these countries were going to Egypt for food. And the place where Jacob lived and his children also had famine. So they all went up to Egypt and, tried to buy food. And Joseph obviously was governor, and he happened to be there and noticed that, hey, well, these are my brothers. And so he plays with them like he's not, their brothers, and sells them the food, but says one of the brothers has to stay here. The other ones have to go back because they tell him about his dad and all that. And so they come back and they tell Jacob, well, we got to bring your other son because he took, one of the brothers, and said, if we don't bring that other son, you're not going to get any more food. And because he was just playing with them, trying to get them to come over. And, over time, they wouldn't go back, and eventually, they just sent him on back. It took a couple more times back and forth, but they just sent the younger son, but eventually Joseph revealed himself to his brothers, and they came back, told Jacob, and then all the stuff was with them, all the goods of Egypt, and they just brought Jacob along, and the whole family was there in Egypt. The significance of that is that they're set up, is what I'm saying earlier. And so Israel moves into Egypt. They're in with that society. I wouldn't say fully. There's still separation of ethnicity and religion. So over the years, after Jacob passed away and Joseph passed away, there was a new political change, a shift in politics. The nation of Israel had grown to many people, hundreds of thousands. And they started, if we keep going, they're going to outnumber us. So the political system changed in Egypt. And now, instead of them being friendly toward the Israelites, now they were, not happy again, that they were against them. And they instated a new policy that they would be slaves. And again, this is where that culture of slavery comes in again, because again, this whole thing, there's always been a culture of slavery in Egypt, and that culture bolstered under that new political class. And so they brought the whole entire Israelites and made them slaves, and they're building all Pharaoh's stuff, whatever he wanted to build, the cities and whatnot, statutes and what have you, whatever you wanted. Okay? And the Israelites just kind of took it, and the policies kind of got crazy over time. And this is where Moses comes in, because in between the time when the policies got radical, they started instating that, hey, they're having too many babies. We're going to kill all the sons now. We're going to kill any baby Hebrew that's a boy. We're going to kill them. And so there's opposition to it, but basically anyone who had a baby that was a boy, they had to be killed because there was a policy set in place. And one of the people that had a child, and they just left him out somewhere to try and hide him, see if somebody else would take him. Because you can't present, if you have to present the children, if you present the children and they say, oh, it's a boy, then they're going to kill him. So, the best thing to do is you got to see if, one of the Egyptians would take him or something. And that happened. I think the daughter of Pharaoh took one of the children, which happened to be, Moses, and, raised him up as her own child in an act of mercy. And she raised him up in, their ways and all that, but he was always an Israelite, you know what I'm saying? And eventually it came to a time when he was older, and there was an Egyptian and an Israelite fighting, and he went and killed the Egyptian, and the whole thing, some people saw it, and the whole thing started spreading about, and he realized, well, I'm not safe here anymore. So he leaves Egypt to go about to some other country. I don't remember what country. I'm not remembering everything. But he went to some other country and lived there, and didn't come back to Egypt. But a long time later, the Pharaoh's gone. Political, it's still the slavery. It's still, big time slavery. It's getting worse. And God sees, how his people are suffering now because the policies are just out of control in the slavery. And this is all set up to bring them out, to humble them and bring them out, out to their country where they're going to be. And so God spoke to Moses and, said, you're going to go and you're going to speak for me. And you're going to tell them, if you don't free the people, then you're going to have plagues and what have you. And so he went out, presented himself, and obviously he was scared about the whole thing. He and his brother were scared about the whole thing, but eventually he just did it. And he went to Pharaoh, presented himself, and essentially every time that the plague happened, every time that God sent a plague, Pharaoh would get hard. He would say, all right, take it away, and then when it's taken away, and then he's like, no, we're not gonna do this. Okay, whole Nile River turns to blood. Oh, please take it away. I'm sorry. And then it's taken away, and then it's back to normal as usual. You're not going to go out. You're not leaving. So it kept happening over and over again, and he wouldn't listen. He got harder and harder until finally it's just the whole economy was wrecked. The water system was ruined, infrastructure, and he just got and the people are getting mad. Their disposition to where, whatever the Israelites ask them for, they just give it to them. They just hand it to them. They're just, get out of here. You're just a liability at this point. And so, he just goes in obviously, he just goes and tells them, get out of here. And in all that, the economy got ruined, the infrastructure, he even lost his son, because if you know the Passover, God sent, God killed all the firstborn children of Egypt if they didn't, plaster blood on their house. And that's why, you see that tradition today in the Passover holiday. But basically, God said you need to put a little, mark on your door, and I'll pass by. And even the Egyptians were doing it, but many didn't. And the firstborn sons were all, many of them got killed, including the Pharaoh's son. And so that just set up a disposition of fear, and they just went ahead and just get out of here. And so Pharaoh let them go, and they go out, and eventually when they let him go, Pharaoh, he got hard again. He was like, what have I done? I just let all these slaves go. I need to build stuff. He got really selfish, because you already screwed up more than you set up out of the slavery. And again, I think it's a different Pharaoh. But they're just continuing the ethnic slavery, and they want to continue it. So they go out, bring the military out, and try to bring them back. And where God sent them was this ocean here. I don't remember what it's called. I can't remember everything in geography here, but one of these rivers. And I'm sure everybody knows about the story of, the passing through the rivers opened up. You've probably seen Bruce Almighty, where he got the tomato bowl and just, okay, it's a joke obviously, but I'm just saying real life here. I'm saying the water, open the water, people go through, and what happens here is the military comes in behind the Israelites, and the waters close in on them. And basically this is just telling us, you're not doing the right thing here. You're trying to go after my people. I'm not going to let you do that. So I'm just going to close in on you here. That's basically what that's telling us, is that, we don't want to be on the wrong side of history, because the people that are on the wrong side of history always get embarrassed. And so Pharaoh came home with no military, no economy, no infrastructure. Everything got screwed up. The water's all screwed up, and he just, it's all messed up. And he's embarrassed. Obviously, the people are probably not very happy with him. We don't know what happens to him at that point, but I'm sure he's not very happy with himself. So after that point, the Israelites go on up, and that's basically the Exodus. They pass through the water. I want to thank you for watching this video. I certainly hope that you do read the Bible. I know that a lot of people are like, well, it's just like a bunch of fairy tales and stuff, but it's not really. You got to read. If you read, I'm just saying, I'm giving you a summary. If you read, you start to understand. And how could it be impossible that all these things could be done? You know what I'm saying? I mean, we just see how society is, and when we have, let's say, the Nazis, and they did the ethnic genocide, and what happened to them? Their society crumbled, and we see, China, atheism, and ethnic genocide and cleansing. What's gonna come of them? It's you know what I'm saying? It always ends the same way when we have nations that don't believe in God, or believe in false gods, or just doing the wrong side of history. I mean, the Nazis did believe in God, but I'm just saying the actions are just the wrong side of history, and every time you're on the wrong side of history, what happens is you're going to lose. One way or another, you're going to lose. And that's why I'm just trying to say, when we have faithlessness as a nation, what happens? When we have faithlessness, we're all atheists, and what happens? We just start going and pulling apart as a society, and that's what happens time and time again. That's why the significance of what, Israel is. Why people are like, well, why are we talking about this nation? There's a significance behind it, showing you when you have faith, what happens. You're strong, you have prosperity, peace, and I'm just letting everybody know, it might be hard to believe, but how could it be hard for, God to do whatever? You know what I'm saying? God want to do a flood, how could it be hard to do that? If God want to open a water, how could it be hard to do that? And so I'm just letting everybody know, you can do what you want to do, you cannot believe, but if God can do whatever He wants, there's going to be a time, there's going to be a time when, extinction level event. If you listen to Busta Rhymes' song, I'm just joking a little, but it's not a joke. There really is something about the Bible, and I'm just letting everybody know it's just coincidence how everything goes to crap, when we don't believe. And I want to thank you for watching this video, and goodbye.